Good evening. This is Pastor T with another installment of Connecting the Dots Unscripted. Today is Friday, November 4th. It's almost Saturday, half hour away from Saturday, which means that there are 3 days left before the election. And I want to deal with a couple of things very quickly. Number first, the language that is used. You will hear the terms used such as off-year election or midterm election. That is a lie. Anytime there's an election, anytime the polls are open, you need to show up. Your vote does matter. The fact that we have had whatever measurable progress we've had in the last couple of years, the fact that we have been able to hold off and mitigate some level of the crazy over the last couple of years is because you went out to vote. That's how President Biden won by 7 million votes. That's how, even if Donald Trump had gotten his wish and he had been able to bully 3 or 4 secretaries of state or governors into finding 100 and some thousand votes, all that means is that he would have lost by 6.9 million votes, but still 81 million Americans would have said, no, we don't want you. Please get out, you're fired. So when you vote, you win. When the people vote, the people win. There's no such thing as a midterm or off-year election. In most states, or in many states, state legislatures are elected in non-presidential years. In the state of Maryland, for instance, we are electing our state legislatures, our county councils, county executives, county commissioners, et cetera, this year. It's an important election for us. Our governor this year. The governor is going to be running the state for the chief executive officer for our state the next 4 years. It's an important election. Last year in Detroit, for instance, they elected a mayor. Atlanta, I believe, they elected a mayor. In Annapolis, Maryland, they elected a mayor. It doesn't matter whether it's an even number year or odd numbered year. If there's an election, if you see signs going up, you hear commercials on the radio, see them on the computer and on TV, and polls are open, you need to go because there's an election going on and it's in your best interest to represent yourself by how you vote and with your vote. There's no such thing as a midterm election or off-year election. Every election is a year on, and you need to show up and represent yourself. So right now we're hearing a lot of polls talking about, well, these are how the numbers look. And right now it's almost like they're looking for some sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. We prophesied these things, we predicted these things. We will suppress the turnout by depressing people into thinking all hope is lost. They won't come out to vote. And then we'll say, see, we were right. But you know what? If you turn out to vote on Tuesday, you can prove the polls wrong because all polling is guessing. It might be an educated guess, but it's a guess nonetheless. And if we turn out to vote in real numbers, and understand there's a difference in the numbers and the percentages of the when people show up to vote. In so-called off-year elections, non-presidential election years, you have maybe 40% of the people who show up to vote. In presidential election years, you have 60% or a little bit more who show up to vote. Typically, when 60% of the voters show up, there is a better result that makes more sense for more people in the country. When there's 40% showing, there's less people turning out, more of the ideologues, the people who support the crazy or whatever, and we get bad results. So in 2008, we turned out in record numbers at the time. President Obama had 69 million votes, beat John McCain by almost 10 million votes. And he had a Senate he could work with, 60 senators, had a House majority, and the result of that was the Affordable Care Act and some other things. But then 2 years later, we heard midterm, we heard off year, a lot of us stayed home, 39 to 40% of people showed up, and a lot of that progress was lost. We show up again in 2012, he wins. 2014, again, we're chilling, we got our feet up, he's got it. No, if you elect somebody, you need to support them by continuing to go to the polls and vote and show up in county council meetings and city council meetings and state legislative meetings to press your agenda. And if you don't, I promise you, you won't get it because you didn't ask. What the Bible says, you have not because you ask not. You didn't ask, you're definitely not going to receive. And so in this year, 2022, when we're just barely trying to hold off the crazy, we've survived so far an insurrection against the Capitol. and against our country and against our democracy. But our democracy is at risk. Whatever else your issues might concern, inflation, you know what? It's a worldwide problem. It's happening everywhere. It's cyclical. Eventually, it will be dealt with. Eventually, it will work itself out. It'll go away. That's the way cycles work. There's nobody that has a plan right now. Oh, I got a plan. We'll make inflation go away on January 21st, as soon as these people are no longer in power. Nonsense. Okay? If abortion or access to abortion rights or no access to abortion rights is your issue, you know what? You need to come out to vote. Whatever your issue or concern is, crime, whether it's real or imagined or only in certain areas of the country, whatever your issue is, if you stay home, nobody cares what you think. You need to get out and vote and prove the polls wrong. Let me say that again. This is our year as voters to prove the pollsters wrong, all the political know-it-alls, all the pros and the pollsters and everybody else. If you come out to vote, don't listen to the polls. No votes have been cast other than through the mail, through absentee ballots, voting by mail, or early voting, and those votes are yet to be tabulated. But the real election, the final call, is on Tuesday, November 8th. And if you show up to vote in 60% level numbers, I promise you, most of the polls will prove wrong. I promise you, you will continue to provide a US Senate that makes some sense, where President Biden can make appointments to the courts and begin to mitigate the huge damage caused by Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump over the past 4 years, and then McConnell ignoring the Senate's responsibility of advice and consent the 2 years prior to that, and essentially ignoring President Obama. It's like, I don't care what the Constitution says, la, 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 we're ignoring you. We're not going to appoint anybody to the Supreme Court. We're not going to appoint anybody to any court. We're just going to wait and hope that a Republican wins in 2016, and then we can take all of those seats that we didn't fill, all of those judicial appointments we didn't fill between 14 and 16, and we'll fill them with our guys. How's that turning out for us? But you know what? If you don't turn out to vote, none of this is going to matter. People who don't agree with your concerns, don't have policies in mind that matter to you, and they're going to ram them down your throat, or at the very least, prevent President Biden from being able to do anything for anybody else for the next 2 years. And then they'll say, see, we told you government doesn't work. Now elect us. We saw how that turned out the last time. So prove them wrong, turn out in record numbers. This is a turnout election. All of the polls, or most of the polls, are this close, and those polls that aren't that close, if we turn out in 60% turnout numbers, you will blow past their predictions, and the people that you really want to see, the people that most of us need to see in office to protect our democracy and help to advance the causes and the needs of we, the people, can get in office or stay in office and make a difference. Prove them wrong. Tuesday, November 8th, get your happy hips out to the polls and vote. Stay in line as long as it takes. Prove them wrong. Protect your country. Protect this democracy. It is still in the hands of we the people. The decision has not yet been made. Don't fall for the okie doke, family. Get out and vote. This is Pastor T, over and out.